Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh, honey, though our friendship ceases from now on.
So here we are again in the brewing lab, and I will talk shortly about the flavor wheel, which is a very useful tool, not just in the coffee business, but at the same time it gives you a better comprehension about what is written on the coffee packaging when you buy coffee. Originally published in 1995, and by now it's like an industry standard in the coffee business. It's a comprehensive, kaleidoscopic reflection of all the coffee flavors. It's been published and developed by SCA and by the World Coffee Research. We are what we eat is one thing what people say, but it's not very true. Food is basically a way of nutrition. But of course it also affects what you eat, is linked with a database you collect in your brain in order to train or to communicate about taste. The choice of color is referring to the flavors. Once you use the flavor wheel, you always start in the middle, because this is like the big category. So you start in the middle and you work yourself through to the outer rims. If we look closer, we see expressions like moldy damp, for example, or phenolic. Of course, this is flavors we don't want to have in the coffee. So the flavor wheel is a combination of aromas and flavors, which means aroma is what I smell, and flavor is a combination of tasting and smelling. Because as you might know, if you take, for example, something sweet, and you close the nose and you try to eat it, and try to assess, you don't taste so much, you only can access the sweetness. But once you release your nose, you will have an explosion of all the flavors, which is a combination of the olfactory and the degustatory sensors. I don't know if you ever tasted a raw potato. I'm not trying to tell you that you should taste everything what you find, what is not poison. But indeed, it's true that you can find a raw potato flavor in a coffee, which in this case, for example, would be a defect. And also, logically, if you think of coffee, you don't really think of raw potatoes, right? So the flavor wheel is a tool which serves people who sell coffee, who buy coffee. Doesn't matter if it's a roaster or if it's a final end consumer, because it gives you an idea about what you can expect related to the variety, to the processing, to the quality of coffee, to the way of roasting. So if I'm saying, for example, I have fruity, I feel fruitiness, then the next step is to try to figure out of which fruits reminds me this flavor, which I'm just experiencing from the cup. So I take a sip, and my first thought goes in the direction of citrus, of like fruity and then citrus. And then citrus still is a very huge category, because as you know, a citrus can be a lemon, but at the same time a citrus can be a super sweet ripe orange from Sicily. Or going in a different direction, it can be a dried orange. This is also a citrus. And as you know, all these, even it's the same category, it's the citrus, but each of them tastes totally different. But at the same time, we have the possibility to describe coffee on composed flavors. Let's take, for example, a candy. And of course, it's containing way more flavors than just grapefruit, because it's made with sugar, grapefruit flavors, which is not natural ones, so you have to expect other flavor combinations than eating an actual grapefruit from the market. The same with a lemon one. So this lemon candy is a composition of flavors. If I say to someone, hey, this coffee, I have like citrus, lemon, acidity or sweetness in the coffee, it's implementing a composition of flavor. The same, for example, marshmallow. Marshmallow is something, by the way, which you find on the description of coffee quite often. It's not necessarily a flavor which you would find officially in the flavor wheel. But let's look more on the chocolatey, nutty, let's say licoricey part. This is flavors people more connect with coffee, because you have, and everyone likes chocolate. But then again, which chocolate are you talking about? Do you mean the dark one, which is more bitter, is less sweet, let's say, whereas the milk chocolate, as it implements already the word milk, is more sweet, you have a milky texture, less bitterness, more sweetness, because it also mostly contains more sugar. Almonds. Let's talk about almonds. Almonds are super nice, but these ones are roasted. So it's a combination of flavors. You have a roasty flavor, which could be, for example, a description for the roast style, rather than for the variety itself. The variety itself would rather be, for example, a raw almond which you pick from the tree before it was processed or roasted. Licorice, for example, can be a result. Here we have a root of licorice, totally new for me. I found it here in Italy, and that's very beautiful on this country, because in this season you find so many fresh things, and partially for me, things I was not able to try before. The best way to train flavors is very easy. It's just try to buy seasonal things. So for example, we have here 3 apples. Again, it's a category, it's a fruit, it's an apple, but then you can even go deeper and say like, okay, which kind of apple? This one, for example, is a Renata, and already when you cut it, it has a different consistency than if we take the red one. And with the consistency and the variety, same like in the coffee, you have a totally different taste. And then the only thing you can do in order to build up your database of taste, flavors, aromas, it's like memories, is to try pure things. So what I do, I go to the market, I explore what is seasonal, and then I buy, for example, 1 apple each, one orange each, just to understand the differences. And through comparing the fruits to each other, I can also more concentrate on the small details, which is acidity, sweetness, aftertaste, and at the same time memorize how I can then recall it when I'm tasting coffee. So thank you so much for your attention. I say ciao from here, and I will start to eat everything what I brought with me, because I didn't have, for example, chocolate for a very long time.
Hi, and welcome back to La Marzocco's Coffee Encounters. Coffee Encounters is a show revolving around coffee, food, lifestyle, the company's history, together with live demos and much more. This new format is presented by La Marzocco Home in collaboration with Accademia del caffè espresso and published once a month on our YouTube channel. During the 7th episode, let us take you through a gourmet journey for a food experience over the best cheese selection and dairy products around our territory. Get to know more about coffee science and sensory topics around the flavor wheel with Nora. Learn how to use portafilter cases of each size as Zach from La Marzocco Home USA shares some tips and tricks on using the baskets to your advantage. Finally, travel up to the countryside north of Hamburg with La Marzocco Germany and visit a magical farm where you will find resources from the land all come together to the table for a fun and fresh healthy meal. Lastly, want to take part in our coffee debates? Stay tuned then and enjoy venturing once again in the fascinating world of coffee.
Hi everybody, as you can see today we are in a special and very unusual place, as we are inside a cave, and as you can see this cave hosts a number of cheese wheels. We are here along with Carlo today. Good day, Carlo.
Good day to you.
Who hosts us in the farm, in the historic Palagaccio farm. Carlo, will you briefly tell us who you are and what your farm produces?
Our is a family-run farm, so there is me, my brother, my father and my mother. And we all deal with the different farm business aspects. Our farm has 2 main businesses. Originally we were cattle farmers, so we raised dairy animals. Dairy cattle belonging to the Holstein Italian breed. This business has passed from my grandfather to my father and then down to our generation, mine and of my brother.
Thus, third generation.
Third generation, and in our farm we have about 990-1,000 milk cows. And every day we produce about 120 to 130 quintals of milk. Every day, early in the morning, a part of this milk is carried out to our cheese factory and turned into the products we see here. Into these delights. From fresh and extra fresh cheeses to fresh milk, ice cream, yogurt, stracchino, fresh and extra fresh robiole, semi-matured products, as well as blue cheese and cheeses left maturing for 12 to 24 months. This is a totally natural environment, as climate and temperature are perfect for cheeses to mature. Temperature ranges between 8 and 10 degrees, 12 degrees at most, while humidity ranges between 80 and 90%. Conditions are perfect and optimal to achieve the perfect maturing and obtain an excellent product showcasing a territory like Mugello.
We had to make a choice, as obviously the farm produces countless products. As a consequence, we had to only select some of them, as we could not present them all. The farm products, however, will be available in our Academy kitchen, thus I absolutely encourage you to come and try them. And today we did. Okay, this is one of the delights.
One of these delights.
You produce, and now Carlo will explain us in detail what it is.
This is a blue mirtillo. It consists of a blue cheese which is cured with red berries from the Tuscan Emilian Apennines. It is cured for 4 to 6 months under these red berries. The contrast between the blue cheese and the red berries create an exceptional product.
It is an incredible explosion of flavors. And it is a product that I selected, that I requested, because we obviously have to know this farm and its products for years. And this is a product we had already used on other occasions during tasting events, pairing it with coffee, while this other cheese, this is
our flagship product. It is a product that is left maturing for 12 to 24 months. This product is massaged for every days with local extra virgin olive oil.
Let's say your flagship.
This allows
product.
it to have an incredible
Perfect.
taste
and
flavor.
So we are ready to start cutting this cheese and tasting it.
It is salted manually, and then even when it is brought here into the cave, it is periodically massaged by our operators on a 10-day basis with the extra virgin olive oil.
All manually, the whole process is rigorously performed.
We are going to taste.
It is excellent, sapid, tasty. It has a strong oil flavor.
Something nice our guests should be aware of: if you can find at least 2 wheels that have the same weight and size, we are going to give away one of them for free.
This emphasizes the absolute artisanship and uniqueness of each cheese wheel. So thank you, Carlo, for hosting us, and we invite you to come here to Palagaccio and try to find the 2 identical cheese wheels. Thank you, until next time.
Hi everybody, I'm Silvia, marketing specialist for La Marzocco Home, and I'm here today with my colleagues Scott, product manager for La Marzocco, and Nora, coffee education leader at Accademia. We're here today to participate to an Oxford-style coffee debate where my 2 colleagues are going to debate over a hot coffee topic. So the way the topics are going to be chosen will be by drawing a small note from this little container here. And then by flipping this coin, we're going to decide who's going to debate pro or contra. So summing up the rules for you, our participants are going to have 1 minute each at their opening phase, then another minute at the rebuttal, and a final minute for their conclusions. So we're gonna have 1 topic, 2 players, 3 minutes each, and you're gonna be the judge. So we have latte art. Nora, you're going to be starting first. So I'm gonna flip the coin now. And if the coin toss lands on heads, you're going to debate pro. If the coin toss lands on tails, you're going to debate against. We got heads. You're gonna have 1 minute, right? Starting from now.
So actually there's a lot of pros when talking about latte art, because it's like the cherry on the cake. You know, it's you go to a coffee place and you get the perfectly executed milk beverage served. It's like the signature of the barista. It's making people smile, the end consumer smile. It's like a smile with which you start the day. Of course, it has to be executed in a really, really good way, because you need to be sure that you have the right amount of foam, milk, and espresso, depending on which beverage you are ordering. So it's like the fine handcraft of the barista. But it's one of the most wonderful things in the coffee business.
So thank you, Nora, for your insights. Now it's time for Scott's opening statement. All right, you have 1 minute from now.
I'd like to start by making one important statement on this topic, which is specialty coffee needs to define itself in quality and not in visual signifiers. For far too long, the specialty coffee movement has been defined on aesthetics, the aesthetics of their cafes and the aesthetics of their drinks. Because of that, it has created a weak system that is easily copied, imitated, and devalued. Because of this, I believe that latte art does not add value. In fact, it makes for a weaker specialty coffee market. And instead, if less significance is put on latte art, and instead significance is put on the quality of the beverage, driven only and purely by taste, we are more likely to have a stronger, healthier, and more enjoyable coffee community.
Thank you, Scott. Now it's time for Nora's rebuttal. Let's go.
Scott, I totally agree with you, because there is indeed a lot of businesses who use latte art just as a marketing tool. But at the same time, you have to agree with me, maybe at least a little bit, that executing and pouring latte art is like one of the disciplines of the barista. It's a standard in the industry. By now, it's like a tool, it's a standard tool of every barista, even people who do coffee at home, because it's adding a high level of aesthetics. Of course, giving the base that you are using high quality coffee, specialty coffee, you need a well-extracted espresso as the base.
Thank you, Nora. Well, I do agree that aesthetics are one of a multitude of valuable things in coffee. I believe that we've gone to the point where we put all of our attention on one item, greatly overvaluing it and diminishing the value of other things. It's quite often to find wildly different levels of foam, wildly different levels of temperature in beautiful latte art. And for me, with the statement, is latte art valuable? I think it's definitely outgrown its value, and instead we should be focusing on the quality of our beverage instead of the quality of our pours. Because you can pour a great latte and a great latte art without having the right milk. I think most professional baristas know that, and that's why you hide your poorly pulled espressos in your larger milk drinks instead of focusing on creating the best quality at all times.
Thank you, Scott. Now we're going to move on to the concluding phase of the debate.
So as my conclusion, I just need to say that it's a very, very wide topic. I wouldn't throw everything in one bucket. And we all know that the problem is always standing in front of the machines, is the one who maybe picks the wrong milk or did a mistake in the temperature. But at the same time, I have to say that latte art is a standard in the industry, and it's something which belongs to or on the surface of a specialty coffee drink. It's even executed in the competitions, and with a reason.
And I think I'd like to just close thinking about what really is valuable in coffee, and it's the enjoyment of the consumer. And with that, the focus needs to be on taste, quality, and the beverage itself. Anything other than that is the window dressing. It can be easily faked, easily mimicked, and be a false signifier of quality. And as long as we can drive our consumers to thinking about what provides the best quality in the cup and not what signifies the best quality, we're more likely to give a great experience. So with that, I hope everybody at home votes that no, a latte art is not valuable. And even if they're not pouring the best latte art at home, as long as their drinks are tasting fantastic, they've achieved something incredible with their home espresso program.
So thank you, Nora. Thank you, Scott. Thank you all for joining us today. You're going to be able to vote for who made the most convincing arguments on our survey, which will follow this Coffee Encounters episode. We hope you really had fun, like we did, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hey y'all, this is Zach Wright with Marzocco Home, and today we're going to talk about portafilter baskets. You might have noticed that when you received your machine, that your machine came with a whole suite of different size portafilter baskets. You've got your 21 gram, your 17 gram, your 14 gram, and then the lesser used 7 gram basket. We're going to talk about maybe when to use each individual basket, and also when to swap them out based on your preference as well. So how do you decide which size portafilter basket to use? Oftentimes, you're gonna buy a bag of coffee and a roaster is gonna provide a set of parameters to brew that espresso at, what tastes delicious. So this month, we're featuring Onyx Coffee Lab for the Marzocco Home Espresso subscription. We're gonna start off just by simply using the Southern Weather blend that they are shipping to all of our subscribers as a starting point. The suggested recipe for the Southern Weather blend is starting at 20 grams of ground espresso in, and they recommend 50 grams of espresso out in about 25 seconds. So we're gonna go ahead and grind 20 grams into the 21 gram basket. And real quick, before we do that, each basket does dictate how much coffee you need to dose. So we're gonna use the 21 gram basket because they suggest dosing 20 grams. Each basket has a tolerance of plus or minus about 1.5 grams of coffee. So in this circumstance, we're using the 21 gram basket because we want to dose 20 grams. So let's go ahead and start grinding some coffee. So again, we used a 21 gram basket for this espresso because we dosed 20 grams of coffee in. But let's say you buy a bag of espresso and the roaster recommends 18 grams. In that circumstance, we'd want to use the 17 gram basket because again, it's within that tolerance of about 1.5 grams of the basket size itself. Now that's the most common way to pick your basket for your portafilter, is based on the dose of the coffee that is suggested by the roaster within the recipe. But what happens if in this circumstance, maybe it's too much coffee for your preference? What do you do? Well, you could simply just pick a smaller basket and follow the same guidelines or the same brew ratio of that particular coffee. So in this circumstance, Onyx suggests 20 grams in, 50 grams out. It's a 1 to 2.5 brew ratio. So if you were to pick the 14 gram basket and dose, say, 15 grams, in order to keep that same brew ratio, you could do 15 grams of espresso in and about 37 or 38 grams out, and it's gonna fall within that same brew ratio. Yeah, and you can follow that math down the size of each basket, as long as you keep that brew ratio in mind. This coffee's really good at a 1 to 2.5 brew ratio, so if you change the volume of espresso in, the dose of espresso in, as long as you keep that output the same accordingly, it's going to be pretty dang delicious. Now there are some other things to keep in mind if you do reduce the dose of espresso in for any given coffee. Since we're using the 21 gram basket at the moment, that's the largest basket that we can use for one of our machines. But if you reduce the amount of coffee in, that is less restriction from the machine, and you're still applying the same temperature typically and the same pressure. So something kind of has to change. You have less restriction. Now typically what that means is each basket actually requires a little bit less time to brew the espresso to taste to that same point of delicious or same point of extraction. Now the best thing about this is that these are just guidelines. They're not hard, fast rules, right? Of course, there's a suggested recipe, but your preference really is the most important thing when it comes to this. Now, for me, my ideal espresso, I'm usually sticking with a 17 gram basket, and I like to pull like a lungo style shot. So a much bigger brew ratio. So if I'm dosing, say 18 grams in, I really like espresso with about 50 grams, 60 grams sometimes of espresso out. Now that may seem a little off because I'm just picking a recipe, but you're able to tweak the variables around the machine in order to achieve your ideal espresso as well. Again, these are just guidelines, but your preference is also achievable just by having some more understanding of the variables around them. Now, keep in mind, again, just to summarize, the baskets determine how much coffee you can dose in. But what happens if you have a preferred brew ratio or a preferred style of espresso? What do you do in that circumstance? You can actually pick any basket realistically that you want. For me, personally, I'm always using a 17-gram basket. I very, very rarely change. And my ideal espresso is dosing about 18 grams in to around 50 grams out as well. I like a more voluminous shot, something to sip on like an Americano. But let's say maybe you like something a little bit more viscous, with a lot of viscosity. You know, you could theoretically take a 17-gram basket and dose 18 grams in and yield about 18 grams out as well. Let's say you have a bunch of friends coming over to your house and you want to serve them all espresso. The 21-gram basket in that circumstance is super great because you can dose a larger amount of coffee and you can yield a lot more espresso. So if you're making drinks back to back to back, you can split it kind of like what you saw earlier. Now, what if you're making coffee for yourself and that's too much? You could use a smaller basket. You could decrease the amount of espresso that you're dosing in and, of course, decrease the amount of espresso out that you're drinking. Something we've been experimenting at La Marzocco Home that you might be interested in trying is if you've been brewing with a 17-gram or a 21-gram basket at home and you find yourself wanting something a little bit smaller, you could simply just swap to the 7-gram basket without really making any adjustment to the grind size itself, but still apply the same brew ratio and brew the espresso and see how it turns out. We found that by swapping it, everything actually works pretty close to the same as both of the larger baskets and have been pretty delicious. You may notice too that the 7-gram basket compared to the other baskets has a little bit different of a shape. Inside you can see this little beveled edge that goes into the actual holes similar to the other baskets as well. And what we've found is that provides a bit more restriction, similar to more coffee being dispersed and spread out in a larger size diameter, like in the 17, 21 gram and the 14-gram baskets as well. So that restriction kind of chokes up the process a little bit, and that's what we're thinking as what provides the restriction to allow your grind size to stay the same. Most of us do tend to stick with a portafilter basket. We find our ideal basket and we stick with it. Every morning we have our routines. I'm sure you do as well. But if you do find yourself wanting to switch things up or just kind of experiment a little bit, hopefully this has given you some guidance to do so. But of course, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at home.usa@lamarzocco.com. Send us your questions, send us your thoughts. We're happy to chat. Thanks.
Ich bin Ibrahim Hamada aus Suchian. Ich bin vor 16 Jahren nach Deutschland gekommen. Ich habe meinen Eltern versprochen, dass ich studieren, weiter Jura oder Musik und so weitermachen. Aber die Wahrheit, ich wollte die Liebe meines Lebens finden. Und ich habe Maiken von kennengelernt. Sie ist aus Belgien. Und wir sind jetzt seit 13, 14 Jahren zusammen.
Also ich und Ibrahim sind so ein bisschen aus Zufall nach Kiel gekommen. Das war alles nicht geplant. Ich wollte eigentlich nach Schweden für mein Studium. Das hat nicht geklappt, bin ich in Kiel gelandet. Und Ibrahim ist auch. Dann haben wir uns kennengelernt und jetzt sind wir hier so ein bisschen stecken geblieben.
Ich wollte ganz gerne wissen, was Ahntafel heißt.
Eigentlich einfach Plattdeutsch und das heißt zum Tisch. Weil wir wollten, es ist unsere Hofbäckerei Bornhorst, ne, die ist in dem Land und dann wollten wir sie zum Stadt bringen und sagen, hier ist unsere Bäckerei, aber wir laden euch ein, euch hinzusetzen und mit uns zu essen. Das ist so eine Sorte von Einladung. Und dann dieses Plattdeutsch benutzen wir auch immer, um diese Regionalität ein bisschen zu zeigen. Und alle Brote haben dann auch einen plattdeutschen Namen. Und die Frühstücken haben plattdeutsche Namen. Ja. Hier machen wir auch Brot gemacht mit Ackerbohnen und Brennnessel und Rotklee. Das ist unser Bodenbrot. Das war so eine Aktion für gesunde Boden und das hat uns inspiriert. Und Ackerbohnen wird meistens benutzt als, fürs Vieh, aber ist sehr gut für den Boden. Ne? Aber auch für uns ist es eigentlich sehr gesund. Das sind die Sojabohnen von hier. Deswegen benutzen wir das in unseres Brot. Dann hast du ein höheres Proteingehalt. Und es ist so ein bisschen wie ein Fitnessbrot. Und Brennnessel haben wir auch reingemacht, weil das ist auch sehr gut für den Boden, Brennnessel. Und es hat sehr viel Eisen. Es ist eine Pflanze, die enorm viel Eisen hat, was viele Leute auch nicht wissen. So auch noch mal rein in Brot. Und dann Rotklee ist auch ein Bodenverbesserer.
Horst and Tafel, one of my favorite places in northern Germany to visit, run by the beautiful people from Beckelitz Specialty Coffee. One of my favorite places because not only the people that work here and own the place make their own bread, build the furniture themselves, the lighting, the concrete, the look of the place, it's amazing. And it's a real expression of the people who own it. Ibrahim and Maiken are some of the most amazing people, especially coffee in Germany. They bake all the bread locally in their farmhouse, about 24 k's out of town. Yesterday we went for a walk with their 3 beautiful children and a baby deer that they picked up from somewhere along the way that Ibrahim's bottle feeding. The place is a real expression of who they are, and like I said, it's one of my favorite places to visit.
Wir machen jetzt auch viele Teemischungen und alles nur mit Kräutern von hier. Ja, Teemischungen sind alle selbst gemacht. So. Und auch inspiriert von die Jahreszeit oder den Monat, welche Kräuter dann gerade wachsen und was für Vorteile sie haben. Dann mischen wir das so ein bisschen zusammen. Wir kommen beide von Kulturen, die sehr lebhaft sind und wir gehen aus und essen und das gehört einfach dazu und das hat uns gefehlt in Kiel. Und wir haben zwar gesucht und versucht, aber es gab einfach nicht genug und dann dachten wir, weißt du, wieso machen wir einfach selbst nicht etwas Kleines? Wir haben immer gekocht, immer Essen gemacht für Leute, immer sind sie zu uns gekommen, die ganze Zeit. Dann dachten wir, naja, können wir ein bisschen Geld damit verdienen. Dann haben wir das gemacht, alle unser Geld, das wir gespart haben, eingesetzt. Ich habe ein bisschen Geld geerbt, alles reingesteckt, unsere Stühle von zu Hause, Teller vom Flohmarkt. Und Ibrahim hatte nur so einen Hammer und einen Schraubendreher. Damit hat er alles gemacht, mit diesem Hammer und so. Und dann haben wir gesagt, ja, vielleicht müssen wir doch mal was kaufen, es lohnt sich vielleicht. Hat er die Tische selbst gemacht. Ich glaube, es gibt noch einen Tisch, von denen er selbst gemacht hat im Resonanz, der noch stehen kann. Ibrahim hat dann angefangen mit Namura, diesen syrischen Rosenkuchen heißt er jetzt. Das ist so ein sehr beliebter Kuchen in Syrien, ist sehr lecker, aber sehr einfach. Aber er hat das gemacht, weil das konnte er, seine Mutter hat ihm erklärt, wie es geht. Und dann hat er, okay, dann mache ich 2 Sorten, dann mache ich einen mit Äpfel rein. Hat er da Äpfel, weil die Deutschen essen gerne Apfelkuchen. Das war dann syrischen Rosenkuchen mit ein paar Apfel rein und ein bisschen Zimt. Und dann war so, habe ich auch gesagt, Ibrahim, aber das geht nicht, dass wir so 2 Kuchen haben. Guck mal, da ist Ibrahim. Ich rede über deinen syrischen Rosenkuchen. Ja, dann meinte ich, das geht nicht, dass man nur 2 Kuchen hat. Wir mussten mehr machen. Dann habe ich angefangen, okay, Kuchen backen, wie schwierig kann das sein?
Resonanz bedeutet für uns viel. Und der Anfang bis jetzt, wenn ich gehe in Resonanz, ich fühle mich so, heute habe ich aufgemacht noch. Die Kräuter, was wir gesammelt Kräuter, was wir gemacht drin war, alles, was wir wollten, wie eine kleine Apotheke. Und kamen tatsächlich die Leute nach einer Weile bei uns und sagen, oh, ich habe Bauchschmerzen, was muss ich trinken heute? Und wir sagen, okay, trink mal diese Kräuter, das zusammen. Wir haben Mischung gemacht, jede Kleinigkeit, die Früchte.
Ja, das stimmt. Wir haben jeden Tee einzeln gemischt.
Hat gedauert alles. Wenn du zum Resonanz gehen, haben die Leute immer gesagt, nimm mal Zeit mit. Oder Matratze. Weil braucht man richtig 2 Stunden. Aber war alles so frisch und mit Liebe, dass die Leute bis jetzt reden darüber. Und sie vermissen uns, die Leute. Wie man fühlt sich, die Leute haben das gesagt auch, sie fühlen sich in Urlaub bei uns. Die sind raus von Deutschland einfach. Türkische Kaffee, arabisch, syrische Frühstück, belgisch. Und war eine schöne Zeit. Ja. Wir haben alles selbst gemacht auch, Brot gebacken morgen früh, immer um 5:30 und geblieben bis 12 Uhr Nacht. Und dann sauber bis 2 Uhr und dann wieder um 5:30. 2, 3 Jahre schon mal. Wir haben fast im Keller geschlafen, ab und zu auch.
Aber war eigentlich eine unserer schönsten Zeit.
Die Menschen haben uns so Energie gegeben, wir waren manchmal fertig.
Du hast ein Brötchen gebacken und dann hast du Herzchen für mich hingelegt, den Teig, sodass ich komme.
Manchmal, sie hat keine Lust zu arbeiten, ich muss für sie etwas Schönes machen.
Und das war schön.
Ja. Nach 3 Jahren Resonanz, dann haben wir Bakalit. Wir wollten gerne Kaffee rösten.
Ja, eine Leidenschaft für Kaffee ist so richtig entstanden.
Ja, genau, weil wir backen selber, dann wir machen den Kaffee auch selber. Wir möchten auch Schokolade selber, Kakao
Das haben wir noch
rösten.
nicht geschafft, ne?
Wir haben noch nicht geschafft, aber der Kaffee hatte ich ein bisschen Ahnung von meiner Heimat und habe ich gedacht, wir machen das. Kräuter habe ich gesammelt früher mit meiner Mutter, Kaffee geröstet ein bisschen auch. Und gedacht, wir machen das auch.
It's beautiful to see that the place is run by half Syrian, half Belgian family. Our beautiful Micah and Ibrahim, and it was something new for me to see in the coffee industry that there is also people from Syria working in it, because I'm from Syria too, and also doing espresso and the old school Ibri Syrian lifestyle of coffee. Yeah, it's so beautiful to see that. I mean, we people can do more than falafel at the end of the day. So yeah, it's amazing.
Was kommt als nächstes? Weil wir haben gestern schon gemerkt, so, es gibt kein Ende. Also ich frage mich, ob es überhaupt nicht was eins gibt. Ich glaube nicht.
Es gibt kein Ende.
Jetzt machen wir nichts mehr.
Aber wir machen jetzt Lessinghalle. Lessinghalle hier in Kiel.
Ja.
Das war eine Schwimmhalle früher und wir machen dort auch wie Bornhaus an Tafel als Bäckerei.
Ja, das Gebäude ist so schön, hat noch eine ganze Geschichte. Wir lassen das Leben uns überraschen und schauen, was für schöne Abenteuer uns noch erwarten.
Hi, I'm Silvia Bartoloni and I'm the community coordinator of Accademia del Caffè Espresso. So welcome back to Accademia and its literary corner. Today I want to introduce you a book that I personally really loved, and honestly that I would never thought I would enjoy so much. It's a biography, it's by Andrea Wulf, and it's called The Invention of Nature. I'm sorry today we have the Italian version, but you can easily find the English version. The Invention of Nature reveals the amazing life of the visionary German naturalist Alexander von Humboldt, and the way he created
the way we understand nature today. Although almost forgotten today, his name lingered from the Humboldt current to the Humboldt penguin. Alexander von Humboldt was an intrepid explorer and one of the most famous scientists of his age. His restless life was packed with discovery and adventure, whether climbing the highest volcanoes in the world, paddling down the Orinoco, or running through the anthrax-infested Siberia. Alexander von Humboldt was one of the first scientists to perceive nature as an interconnected global force, and also one of the first to predict the human-induced climate change. Alexander von Humboldt's studies were driven by passion, bravery, and love for his job. He was approaching every new country with curiosity and humility. He was also one of the biggest influencer, we can say, of his age, influencing poets or even politicians and other scientists. Just a few names like Darwin, Goethe, or Wordsworth. Even Jefferson was influenced by Alexander von Humboldt. Alexander von Humboldt pushed forward frontiers, destroyed dogmas and stereotypes of his age. We found it's an amazing approach we would like to have also in the way we develop our machines and in the way we are trying to developing La Marzocco as well, our company. I warmly suggest this book because it's amazing to see how far we can go to see the birth of the modern concept we have of nature. I really hope you will enjoy this book, and so goodbye till next time. Ciao.
Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh honey, though our friendship ceases